So we learned yesterday in the Medrash that the reason why the Torah used the term, I came to my garden, is because before, when the world was first created, that was the place where the Shekhinah was. In spite of the fact that there are so many spiritual worlds, and all the spiritual worlds are infinitely higher and greater than this physical world, this is considered the lowest of all the worlds. Nevertheless, where was Hashem's Shekhinah? It was Dafka in this spirit physical world. But after the different sins that were committed, the Shekhinah was removed from this physical world, and it rose in the beginning through one generation of sin. It went to the first heaven, the second heaven, and eventually it went to the seventh heaven, which is the furthest it could be removed from this physical realm. I'm not sure that I have 100% clear answer to this question, but people ask, where do the seven heavens fit in? But this is not the four worlds we always talk about. It's not Atzilus, it's not Bria, it's not Yitzira. In other words, these seven heavens that we're talking about, it's in the physical world. In fact, in some places it appears that we're talking about in space, actually space, as if to say, heaven is a certain amount of space. In fact, in Gemara, you says it's one of the ways of measuring distances was how long it takes to walk. It takes 500 years to walk that space to the first heaven. Then it takes 500 years to walk from the first heaven to the second heaven. And the distance to the third heaven is another 500 years of walking. And each heaven in itself is 500 years of walking. So on one hand, it seems to be describing it as if we're talking about different levels of space that's far from Earth. But clearly from the Maimon, we also understand that there's not just different levels of space, but it's different levels of spirituality that is not as physical as the physical realm. And therefore, once the sins were committed, Hashem was no longer connected in such a revealed way to the physical. He was here in this world, but removed 7 degrees, if we use that term. Then, after that happened, so where are we? We're the line that begins with the word v'ozel. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from the beginning. V'achar kach omdu shivat tzadikim. After this, 7 tzadikim stood up, v'haridus hashchina lamata, and they reversed the course, the direction. And they brought the Shekhinah back down to this world. And what was the order? Thank you. Thank you. Avram, Zocha, V'herdis, Hashchina, V'rakir, Zayin, Levov. Avram Avinu, he was the one who had the merit, and the first Jew, to bring the Shekhinah down from the 7th heaven to the 6th heaven. Yitzchak brought the Shekhinah down from the 6th heaven. In other words, Avram Avinu, through his holiness, through his mitzvahs, through his good deeds, the opposite of sin, did the reverse. He brought the Shekhinah down, but from where? From the 7th heaven to the 6th. Yitzchak brought the Shekhinah down from the 6th to the 5th. And then I guess Yaakov brought the Shekhinah down from the 5th to the 4th. And then there was Yosef. And then there was Levi or Amram, I'm not sure who we count. Moshe Rabbeinu was the 7th. He's the 7th generation. His father was Amram. Amram was a grandson of Levi, a son of Kahos, who was the son of Levi, who was the son of Yaakov. So from Avram Avinu, these are 7 generations. Moshe is the 7th. We have a principle that all 7th are the most precious. And we actually see that Moshe Rabbeinu did something which is unprecedented, even compared to the other tzaddikim. What did he do? Haridu the Mata Baretz, he brought the Shekhinah down to this physical world. those who were here last year saw this, but I just thought I'd show it to you. It's very interesting. We said yesterday that the purpose of Hanukkah is to turn darkness into light. So, you know what this is? This is a rifle butt. This is from a cannon. This is from bullets. And it was turned into Hanukkah menorah. Yeah. This is darkness turning into light. In fact, he told me this is a German rifle. And I met this Jew through a whole, a lot of different things happened. On a plane, we had a storm, and we missed out. We didn't have our flight. Everything was canceled. We had to go on another plane the next day, and because a lot of people missed their flights, we couldn't sit together. My daughter, those who know her, Khani, she was about 8 years old then. Before we left, she told me why she wants to take this big siddur with her on the plane. My wife said, "Don't. We have siddurim there." She took her big siddur. Why am I saying that? Because she was sitting on the plane with this siddur. Next to her, there was someone sitting there. I don't know if he's Jewish or not Jewish. But then he turns to her and says, "You know what this means?" She looks at him. Yeah, it says Arizal. So he says, that stands for Yitzhak Luria. That's my name. I'm a descendant of the Arizal.
Wow.
And that's how he got into trouble. So when we heard that, we like to put on tefillin, they made a connection.
He wasn't observant?
He was not observant, very far from it. He was actually descendant of Arizal and a descendant of Rashi.
But he could read Hebrew at least?
Yeah, he was an Israeli. He was an Israeli, fought in the Israeli army, and he did a project for the Israeli army. So this was their reward to him. They gave him this. They put it together and they awarded it to him. And it was very precious to him, and because his family was very far from Yiddishkeit, and he had two religious items. This was one, and he had a Tanakh that the army gives each soldier. So he gave it to us that it should be in good hands.
He gave you that?
Yeah, unfortunately, a few years later, he passed away. Since then, we used to come. He came on Hanukkah, but he felt, he was older, he was weaker. He was lived in Connecticut, and and he was afraid that his children would find it and just throw it out. It was very precious to him, so he wanted it to get out of hands. So I figured it's a schus for him. His name was Oded Ben Yosef, and this is something which is interesting. There's all interesting kinds of menorahs. This is, I think, one of the most interesting.
Have you ever used it?
Yeah, when he was here, we used to use it. He would light on it. I mean, it must have very thin candles. It's very thin. But just the idea that such an object becomes a source of light, that's Hanukkah. Yeah.
So if Moses brought the Shekinah from the second heaven to the first heaven?
No,
No?
the first heaven to earth.
Okay. That's what I'm wondering.
That was your question?
Yeah.
Wait.
Because
Then what
then-
happened to the others?
But then, it would have to be Joseph's lady, Amram, and Moses. You'd have to have both lady and Amram.
Yeah, there's 4 generations. So Yaakov brought it down from the, what did he say here? Yitzhak is from the 5th to the 4th.
Yeah.
Then you from the 4th to the 3rd,
Yeah.
3rd to the 2nd, 2nd to the 1st. First, yeah, 4 generations. So Yaakov's son was Levi. Levi's son was Kahas. Kahas' son was Amram, and Amram's son was Moshe. So we see that in reference to days of the week, the most precious day is Shabbos, the 7th day. In the month of the year, the most outstanding, precious month is Tishrei, which is the 7th month, because we count from Nisan. In terms of the yearly cycles, every 7th year is a sabbatical year, is Shvius. So we see that the 7th are our most precious. And Moshe Rabbeinu, because of that, was able to do something outstanding, and that is the sort of the biggest challenge and the most important part is to bring the Shekhinah back down here to earth. In other words, once the Shekhinah is removed from earth, true, it could be the first heaven, the second, the third, but it's far from us already. So for us, the most important thing is when it's down to earth. And also, you know, from Hashem's perspective, the most important thing is down here on earth. Where and when did Moshe Rabbeinu bring the Shekhinah down to earth? Through what action? for giving us the Torah. When he gave us the Torah, that's when the Shekhinah was brought down to earth. Now, in earth itself, where was the Shekhinah? In a specific place. From and through this specific place, the Shekhinah was spread to the whole world. Where's the specific place? Yes. And the primary place where godliness was revealed is the Beis Hamikdash. The Ksiv, like it says, "V'osuli migdash, v'shachanti b'seicham." Hashem gave us a commandment: build a Beis Hamikdash, and I will dwell there. That means that Hashem dwells in the Beis Hamikdash. Although Hashem is everywhere, there's no place in the world that's void of Hashem's presence. So what do we mean when we say Hashem dwells there? It means in the Beis Hamikdash, His presence is found in a more revealed way. And in general, there's a difference between something that's holy or not holy. We say that a shul is holy, a Sefer Torah is holy, tefillin are holy. It doesn't mean that every place else is empty. There's no godliness there. It can't. If there would be no godliness, it couldn't exist. So when you say something is holy, it means that Hashem's presence is more revealed there, more felt. It's some in a way where there's more consciousness of Hashem. So this would be like it says that one of the ways of understanding the way Hashem relates to the world is by using the analogy the way the soul gives life to the body, because Hashem is the soul of the universe and He gives life to the universe. So when you talk about the neshama and the guf, if one would ask a question, where in the body is the soul's vitality? The answer is everywhere. Every part of my body is alive. So every part of my body has the neshama. But where is the neshama more pronounced than any other part of the body? That's the brain and the heart. That's where you see the life force, the movement of intellectual and emotional, that sort of expresses the presence of the soul in a more revealed way than any other part of the body. And in fact, from the brain and the heart, that's where the life is distributed to all the rest of the organs in the body. These are the most vital organs. So the same as with Hashem. Primarily, Hashem dwells in the Beis Hamikdash in a more revealed way. And from there, His presence is spread throughout the whole world. And he goes on to say, and by the way, it's just important to know, Osli Migdash is a pasuk in Chumash, and it's one of the 613 mitzvahs, one of the 613 commandments. Then it brings a medrash. And the medrash says, it doesn't say, I will dwell in it. This is talking about, let's look up the pasuk. The pasuk, if you look up in the booklet, oh, I think I don't even have it right. I gotta use one of these. I have an old version. Sorry. So the pasuk is here on page. It's not here. No, okay. So the pasuk is talking about the sanctuary, the Mishkan that was built in the desert. So according to Hebrew grammar, it should have said, build a Migdash, and I would dwell in it. But it uses plural, v'seicham, in them. So one interpretation is because the pasuk is also alluding to all the future Beis Hamikdash. After they had the Mishkan, they built one in Israel, and there was the first one, there was the second one, there was the third one, and eventually there was the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim, the first Beis Hamikdash, and the second Beis Hamikdash, and now with Mashiach, the third Beis Hamikdash. So therefore it's plural. But there's another source that says, B'seichai le'namar. It doesn't say in it, ela b'seicham, in them, and this teaches us, B'seich kol echad v'echad, in every single one of you, which means Hashem says, there's in a sense two things. One is the physical structure, that's in a physical geographic location somewhere in Eretz Yisrael, or then it was in the Midbar, in the desert. But then also I want you to build a Beis Hamikdash in your heart. Every single one of us in our hearts. And the reason why he's saying this will later explain that all the details that we find in the actual Beis Hamikdash are found in a figurative way within ourselves. This is the meaning of the pasuk where it says, "Tzadikim yishu oretz, v'yishkenu lo adoleho." The tzadikim, they will inherit the land, and they will dwell on the land forever. Tzadikim yishu oretz. What does it mean? The land, Gan Eden. It's referring to the Garden of Eden, which means the reward that the soul gets after this life. And why would they merit to inherit the land? Why would they merit this reward? The word yishkenu comes from the term shkinim, which means they draw down. Sheikh and ad, the word ad means forever, but the word ad also alludes to, he's not going to go into it here, so we also won't go into it, but there's a place in davening we say Sheikh and ad, Morim v'Kodesh. Hashem dwells forever, and he's exalted and holy. It's referring to a specific level of godliness, a very high level of godliness. And because we draw that, those people who draw down this level of godliness, should be revealed, therefore they merit that they will inherit Gan Eden. So again, it points to the same thing, that our avodah is to continue bringing God's presence down in a revealed way in this physical world. Bosi Legani. So we go back, this is the meaning of the words Bosi Legani Legnuni, to my garden. The Mokim Shayikr. This is the place where Hashem's presence was there originally, and Hashem wants us to bring it back to the way it was. Of course, in other places in Chassidus, it adds, so what's the point? The Shekhinah was there, it left. We've been working on it for 5,000, so many thousands of years. Is that the ultimate purpose, just to bring it back to the way it was? So why do we have to go through everything we went through? So obviously, when we bring the Shekhinah down, like Moshe in his times and Mashiach in his times, then it's going to be something even greater than what was there initially. But that's another discussion. But generally speaking, we're bringing the Shekhinah back to where it was initially. The Inyan who, now to explain this in more depth, why was the Shekhinah here in the first place? Because logically, I would expect the opposite. The Shekhinah was in Atzilus. That's the highest of all the worlds. And that's the place which is the most conducive to sort of be the place for the Shekhinah. Instead, we say, no, the Shekhinah was mainly here, and all Hashem wants of us is to bring it back here to this physical world. The ultimate purpose of the creation of the worlds is Nesaba Kodesh Baruch Hu Yisbarek Dida V'Taftedim. Hashem had a desire that he wants to have a dwelling place here in this physical world. This is something which is sort of the cornerstone of everything in Chassidus. There's a chapter in Tanya where the Alter Rebbe elaborates on this, and that's sort of the place where Alter Rebbe introduces this, that why did Hashem create the world? He wanted a dwelling place in this world. And it doesn't answer all the questions, because why did he want a dwelling place in this world? So in essence, we're not really explaining why he created the world, because the truth is it's impossible to understand why. And I'll tell you why it's impossible. Hashem is infinite. Infinite means he's not lacking in any way. When someone wants something, it means I want this, which I don't have. So it doesn't make sense to say that I want to have a house if I live in a house. Oh, I want a nicer house. Okay, because I don't have it. So the only thing people want, or anyone wants, is something which they don't have. Being that Hashem has everything, and there's nothing that's lacking, what could he want? If we were to say that by creating the universe, it made Hashem more perfect, that means that Hashem was sort of imperfect before creation. And that's not Hashem who we know as being infinite. So no matter what reason we could think of and say, oh, this is what there is to gain. This is what he will achieve by creating the world. there's nothing to achieve. Everything is perfect. So therefore, we don't really know why he wanted, but we know what he wanted. That's the difference. Not why, but what. What's the plan? Knowing what's the plan helps us serve him better because this is sort of the mission statement. It's like in anything else. You have an organization or you have a business, there has to be a mission statement. And the reason is because without a mission statement, you can go off track and do things that are not really conducive or meaningful or purposeful for your business or for your organization. And you get derailed. You go off and you spend time or energy or money in things that are not really important for your purpose. So you always have to remember what is the mission statement. I remember once reading a letter where apparently there was some big conflict between the parents and the administration of the school. And they were asking the Rebbe to get involved. The Rebbe would never get involved in conflicts. He would either sometimes tell people just calm down, or he would tell them to go to a Rav, a Bezdin, that their function is to reconcile between two parties that are fighting. So the Rebbe writes, I'm not getting involved in the conflict. I just want to make you aware of a very important point. And the point is that the school, the administration, and everything that's there is for the students. It's not the other way around. In other words, the students and everything that's going on is not there so there's an administration who have nice jobs and nice positions. The mission statement and the goal are the students. So therefore, whatever you do, whatever you think, has to be in the direction of what's going to benefit the students, because that's the ultimate goal. It's like in a hospital. In order to have a hospital running, you have to have a staff, and you have to have administration, you have to raise money, you have to do all sorts of things. And sometimes you get involved in the means to an end that it takes you away from the actual end. If you have to remember, no, the purpose of the hospital is to treat patients and to make them healthy. And if you do anything that's going to take away from that purpose, you're going off track. So they tell this joke that there was once a little shtetl that the children were playing near a road. That's the only place they had where to play. And it was dangerous because cars, well, maybe those days horse and wagon, whatever it was, vehicles were coming by. And it was a danger that the children would get hurt. So they decided at a meeting that we have to hire a guard. He would stand there and make sure to direct traffic and nobody gets hurt. Okay, who's going to pay for him? So they decided to hire someone, and they're going to collect money from every member, every family member in this community, and they're going to pay the guard. And who's going to keep the money in the bank and keep a record? Oh, so they hired another person, should be like a secretary, and another person should be in charge of this, another one in charge of that. There's a whole board of directors. After 2-3 years, there was an emergency meeting. There's a crisis, financial crisis. We don't have money to keep going. So they had a vote. We have to make some changes. And they all unanimously voted to fire the guard. He was the most expensive person on the payroll. So they fired the guard. Which means, I have a job as a president, you have the job as the vice president, you're the secretary, you're the treasurer. We don't cost that much, but he costs the most. But wait a second, what's the whole purpose? So basically, you always have to know what's the mission statement. We have Torah mitzvahs, 613 mitzvahs. Each mitzvah has thousands of details. In order to be able to do things properly and really enhance our avodah, we have to know, so what's the plan, the ultimate plan? And that's what we know. The ultimate plan is that Hashem wants a dwelling place in this world. So the answer is not why, but the answer is what. And once we know what, that will enhance our avodah Hashem. And this in itself, what does it mean? A dwelling place in this world. Sheyiya gili elakus lamata, that godliness should be revealed down here. Aidei aveda sadam, through the aveda of a person. Aidei eskapia v'ishapcha. These two words are also essential because what I just finished saying, you can ask a simple question. Hashem wanted a dwelling place in this world. What's the commotion? So let him create the world. And 2 minutes later, he can transform the world into a dwelling place, and mission accomplished. So we have to remember that there's another part to the equation. Not just he wanted a dwelling place in this world. He wanted a dwelling place in this world through the avodah, through the efforts of human beings, through our avodah. Because otherwise, Hashem can do it himself. That's part of what he wanted. Number one, there should be a dwelling place in this physical world, the lowest of all worlds. And the dwelling place should be, this should be accomplished through the avodah of human beings. And that avodah is called the skapia and the sapcha. And I'll soon explain what these two things are. But what it means is the neshama tered lamata. That's why Hashem wanted the neshama to descend down here in this physical world. This labish beguv v'nefesh bahamis, and the neshama is invested in the physical body, and nefesh bahamis, the animal soul. Behem yalimu v'yastiru al neshama. These two, the guf and the animal soul, they both block the light of the neshama. The neshama itself is a brilliant spiritual light, and the neshama itself, as love for Hashem, fear and awe of Hashem, has only one desire to do what Hashem wants. But because the neshama is invested in a guf, it's like having a brilliant, a bright light bulb that has 1,000 watts. But if you put it into something that's dark, it covers the light. So the guf and the nefesh bahamis, they conceal the light of the neshama. So we don't really feel the full strength of our neshama. In spite of the fact that there are things blocking the light of the neshama, Tifer HaNeshama, Birur V'Zichur Chaguf Nefesh Bahamis. The neshama will overcome those obstacles, and the neshama will refine and elevate the guf and the animal soul, the gam chalku be'olam. So basically, there are three things which is the responsibility within the neshama. One is to refine and transform the physical body, to make it more refined, through doing mitzvahs with the body. The other is the nefesh bahamis, the animal soul, that the animal soul within me also becomes directed towards Hashem rather than blocking me. And the third thing is chelka be'olam, my portion in this world, which means every person has a place in the world that they're connected to. It means the block you live on, the house you live in, the people you work with, your social circles. These are all people that I'm in contact with. It's a huge world, and every person has a limited amount of place that they're connected to. That's called my portion of this world. In fact, anywhere, if you end up traveling to a different country, you end up going on a walk, going on a trip to a different state, all this is part of the portion of my world that Hashem created this for me to elevate. And Hashem, Hashgacha Pratis, leads me to these places. So even though I have a guf and nefesh bahamis, and the world itself is a place that conceals godliness, I should overcome this darkness, overcome these challenges, and do what Hashem wants. And that's what it means. You should make a migdash and I will dwell in it. In everyone. How does Hashem come to dwell within each one of us? Through doing the avodah of birurim, which is to refine and to elevate the physical and the nefesh bahamis. And this avodah is done through his skapia and his hapcha. Now, what's his skapia and what's his hapcha? They're both Aramaic words, and they're similar to the Hebrew, but they're still different. And if I've mentioned it in this class, that one of the ways of identifying a word, whether it's Aramaic or Hebrew, is by looking at the last letter. If the last letter is an aleph, it's usually Aramaic. If it's a hey, then it's usually Hebrew. So iskapia means to bend, and his hapcha means to turn over, to transform, which means there's two ways to deal with the nefesh bahamis. Just like physically, if I have someone who is challenging me, someone who is my enemy, someone's going against me, there's two ways to overcome that. One way is to overpower this force that's opposing me, this force that's oppressing me. I overpower them and I subdue them and I eliminate them. The other possibility, which is even greater, is this hapcha, that force or that person, or whatever it is that was opposing me, actually turns around and becomes something which is positive and a support. That's the ultimate goal.
Can you say that word again?
The second one is hapcha. Why?
Where is it?
It's third line from the top, and it's the third word on the line.
Thank you.
The one before it is skafia, and the next one is hapcha. So in other words, if I have a nefesh Bahamas, that my nefesh Bahamas has an impulse to do something which is negative, iskafia would mean is I have that impulse, I feel very angry, and I'm ready to do something negative as a result of my anger. Iskafia would mean to control myself, to hold back. And hapcha would mean that I'm able to work on myself to the degree that I don't lose my temper in the first place. And the same thing which yesterday or a year ago or 2 years ago made me so angry, today I look at it and it doesn't bother me, which means I've changed that character trait completely.
So iskafia is more like short term, like being able to control your impulses, whereas the other one is like full circle, like you've done so much inner work that it's not about controlling the impulse, like you don't even have the impulse to begin with.
Exactly, right. So that's more permanent. It's like physically, if there's somebody there that's committing a crime, let's say in a city, and you lock him up and you take him to jail and you give him a fine, then eventually, a few years later, he's back on the street and is back doing it again. But if a person goes into a program of rehabilitation and somehow you succeed in talking to them and educating them till they realize the way they're living is not good and they change the way they live, that's his hapcha. So they tell the story that the Alter Rebbe, when he was studying by the Maggid Mezrich, his study partner was the son of the Maggid Mezrich. His name was Rav Ram the Malach. He was the son of the Maggid Mezrich. And he was also a very big tzaddik, and they studied together for a brief amount of time. And then the Alter Rebbe was leaving to go home. So when he went out home, there was a horse and wagon there. And the Malach, they called him the angel because he was such a spiritual person. He turns to the wagon driver and says, so when you're going out there, whip the horses, that they should know that they're horses. And then he said, and whip the horses until they'll no longer be horses. The Alter Rebbe said he knew that he wasn't speaking to the wagon driver about the horses. He was alluding to two ways to deal with the Nefesh Bahamas, the horse inside. And when he realized these are two paths and how to serve Hashem, he decided, I'm going back in and stay here a little bit longer till I learn about the two paths. One is, my horse should know you're a horse and I'm not letting you do what you want to do. And the other one is to transform that the horse is no longer a horse. So it means every person, it says in Tanya, even tzaddikim are born with a nefesh Bahamas. Everyone has an animal soul. That's just the way, just like everyone has a body, everyone has an animal soul. And the animal soul naturally could be leading us in a certain direction. But most people, we struggle, and even people that struggle, everyone, with all our humility, we all have to agree that there are certain things that we do succeed. Even regular people, there's certain things I succeeded that I'm no longer struggling with this issue. I got over it. It's not even an issue anymore. I don't have to. There's no confrontation. I'm above it. Kamaimer, the source for this is from the Zohar. These are the words of the Zohar. Kadiskafia sitra acher, when a person bends, the sitra acher, bends means subdues. The sitra acher, which is another word for klipa. Sitra acher literally means the other side. That's another way to refer to klipa. This draws down. Yikara means the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Kulu Almin in all the worlds, which means that the thing that gives Hashem the greatest pleasure is the iskafia. Hashem has angels, And the angels don't have any struggles. They don't have any animal soul, and they don't have to overcome. They don't have any challenges. Generally speaking, angels were created by Hashem, that they are programmed to love Hashem, to have fear of Hashem, to do only good things. They don't even have a Yetzer Hara. It doesn't happen. So I would assume that Hashem enjoys the avodah of the angels much more than our avodah, because we're dealing with the mud and we have to struggle and get out and cleanse ourselves. But the truth is no, the Zohar says the opposite is true, that the greatest pleasure Hashem has is when there is a skapia, there are challenges, and we're able to overcome the challenge because that's what Hashem wants us to do. Then this is an avodah that gives Hashem the greatest pleasure, and it brings Hashem's presence down into this world, not only in this world, but b'chol almin, in all the worlds. Now the next piece in the Maimer is going to explain this term, in all the worlds. What does that mean? And this part of the Maimer is a little bit more philosophical and a little bit more difficult to grasp, but it's very important. And after that, most of the Maimer is more down to earth, and it's all about avodah, about how to build our own personal Beis Hamikdash, and how to transform our own personal Nefesh Bahamas. Okay, so we'll stop over here.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So we're giving Chanukah Geld again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you guys are gonna become rich.
Having
Seriously.
$50 is a big responsibility.
Yeah. You can spend it only on coffee. Okay. Freilich and Chanukah.
Save it and cherish it forever.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Hi. What? I just got another dollar the other day. That's it. It says Hanukkah, but this one had no name on it. It just says Hanukkah, and it has my name on it. So one day it'll come back to me.
Oh, can you find mine too?
Are you kidding? Come on.
No, yeah, I'm kidding. This is actually the best.
I'm gonna frame it in my house.
Actually, yeah. Yeah. Didn't mean to start a whole.
Okay. Hanukkah 5781. Are you guys serious?
Yes, we're serious.
Okay, maybe let's
It's
make
like it's like
That's
something
why
we keep to remind us of seminary. It's
let's
not-
make believe it's Purim today. Okay. Okay. Who's this?
Say what?
What time is the 18th?
How do I,
We have another class, and we have that one, and then we have
how do you start this?
that. I usually just pretend like the way you would on a normal Zoom.
You have two.
There's no
Oh,
end.
okay.